I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. If you're not done praising him, you work that out. Because it's not my service, it's his service. I'm not mad at you. First, giving honor to God, the Father and Creator of all things, the one in whom every living thing has its existence. The lives he not only creates, but maintains and sustains. The one who sits high, but he looks low. The one who is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. The only wise God. There ain't but one, and he's it. And then to his precious beloved, only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, who was incarnate of the Virgin Mary and became human, and when he was found in the form of a man, he humbled himself unto death, even the death of the cross. The one who had never died, died. The one who is ever living, died. The one who had never separated, agreed to the separation, humbled himself unto death. See, somewhere in this world, when you tell the saints of the Most High God that Jesus humbled himself unto death, even the death of the cross, they holler, they jump up, they shout hallelujah, because they know that their righteousness, their salvation, their redemption, their claim to glory, their today and their tomorrow rests in the fact that Jesus died and was resurrected and lifted up and returned to his Father. And because he went home, I get to go home. You don't have to holler. I'll holler. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, I bless your name, Lord God. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Thank you. If I had 1,000 tongues, I wouldn't know how to tell you how much I love you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Hallelujah. 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 Hey, hey, hey. Woo. Woo. Oh, if he ain't delivered you from nothing, don't worry about the rest of us. You got to forgive them of us that's hollering, because he's taken us a mighty long way. On Tuesday, was it, Rocky? Was it Tuesday I went into the hospital? And the man said, you have pneumonia? And I said, I can't have pneumonia. He said, yeah, you do. You hear that wheezing? That's pneumonia. Yeah, I'm listening to the bass of your left lung. Air's not moving. Yeah, that's pneumonia. Want to stay with us? I said, I can't stay with you, because I need to be in the service on Sabbath morning. And he said, no, because you're not going to be able to talk. And I said, no, because you don't know my Jesus. I won't just talk, I shout, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Woo! Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me. Woo! Love lifted me, love lifted me, love lifted me up. Love did that for me. Oh, I glorify him, magnify him. Love lifted me. Ooh, hallelujah. And then to the Holy Ghost, the mighty rushing wind, tongues of fire on the heads of saints, transforming us into the image of God. We ain't even looking. He transforming us, we don't even know it. Suddenly you turn around and you're taller than you were before. That's the Holy Ghost. Turn around and you're sweeter than you were before. That's the Holy Ghost. Turn around and you living right suddenly. That's the Holy Ghost. Turn around and you forgiving more. That's the Holy Ghost. Turn around and you ain't so mad, evil, hard-headed. That's the Holy Ghost. Hey, 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 that's the power. The power in the presence. And so, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, I offer you the greeting of the Godhead this morning. The word says that we need to give thanks because it is He that made us and not we ourselves. And we're still His people, the sheep of His pasture. So we need to enter His gates with thanksgiving. Whatever you brought with you that's troubling you, put it out. Put it out, because you have to enter His gates with thanksgiving and enter His courts with praise. Be thankful unto Him and bless His name, because the Lord is good. Because the Lord is good. Yeah, He is. He's good all the time. His mercy is everlasting and His truth endures through all generations. I want to thank Pastor Jenkins for his kindness. I want to thank Dorothy Means for the invitation. I want to thank the elders, the officers, the members of Normandie Avenue Seventh-day Adventist Church for the great privilege of pleading the Lord's case one more time. As I just told you, I've had something of a week. It has not been easy, but His yoke is still easy, and His burden is still light. And so I made it because He's good. He's just good. And if I holler a few more times in the service, won't you forgive me? Don't hold it against me, because I intend to go to glory and holler from one new moon to another, one Sabbath to another. I just intend to holler continuously. I'm going to shout all the time. So I'm practicing now. It has been a while since I was in Normandy. I bless the Lord to have returned to you. I see the good work that you are doing. We hear about you over there in Philadelphian Seventh-day Adventist Church in Long Beach, where I and Pastor Ron Pollard and several others of us try to hold up the Lord's case over there in Long Beach. And we are delighted to know that our sister church is still causing many to become disciples before Jesus Christ. Let us pray. Oh, God, what kind of a God are you? Father, the wind and the water still obey your voice. Before you, pneumonia flees. Before you, sickness and grief and sorrow, they flee. What kind of a God are you? Show yourself today. Place us behind your hand as you once did Moses, and then pass before us declaring that you are the Lord Almighty. Keep talking to us, Lord, till our faces glow, and then breathe on us today, because I cannot preach until you come. Even so, come, Lord Jesus. For I ask it in his name. Amen. It is a great privilege as a woman to be asked to preach on Father's Day. It's a great privilege. We sometimes live in a community where people believe that, particularly in the African American world, that women and men are at odds with one another, that there is a great rift between black women and black men, that black men are lazy, shiftless, jobless, thoughtless, irresponsible, that black women are bitter, angry, nasty-tempered, evil. There's this perception of us you see in the world. But today I have the great privilege of shattering false perceptions because I am in defense of manhood, particularly African manhood. You see, African men are my brothers. They're my fathers. They're my uncles. They're my sons. And I'm in defense of my own family. Now, if I talk bad about my brothers, to my brothers, don't y'all worry about that. That's family. But when I hit the street or the newspaper or any other public medium, I'm in defense of my own brothers. I'm proud of black men. I'm proud of them. Yeah, I am. Given the odds against you, given the enormity of the historical odds against you, the fact that you are alive reasonably well and mostly sane is a remarkable achievement and feat on the part of the men who once led the world in understanding what it meant to be men. You got quiet right there. But I've come to correct misconceptions. You see, it was African men who first taught the world what it means to be men. See, it would have had to have been African men because they were the first men. It's gonna go like that today, huh? Well, I just want to help you that the first humans could not have been in Sweden. Eden couldn't have been in Sweden. They tell me that the oldest human remains are in the Olduvai Gorge in the country you now call Kenya, which was at one point the center of all Africa. Oldest human remains. Okay, you don't like that one. How about this? The oldest human records ever in existence, yeah, they come out of Africa. The oldest study of medicine, the oldest study of agriculture, the oldest recorded records, that means language and the pen and the paper you do it with. Yeah, all out of Africa. Africa had civilizations where elsewhere in the world people were still living in caves. See, don't believe me. Heaven forbid that you should do that. I do have a Ph.D. in cultural anthropology, but heaven forbid that you should believe me. You see, if African Americans would go back to the interesting process of reading, if you read anything at all, you'd be in a position to know some of what I know. You know, my students come to me all the time and say, Dr. Mandy, you're just so brilliant. Good grief, I could never be like you. I said, sure you could if you read for 40 years. Everyone has genius. Everyone has genius. What your genius is in requires you to find it. But if you can read, if you can put two words together and figure out the sentence, then spend 40 years doing it and see if you don't end up knowing a few things here and there. African men taught the world what it meant to be men. They offered the first definitions of manhood. And even today, African men must offer definitions of manhood to a world gone insane with its hedonism. Hedonism means simply I do what I feel when I feel it. It sounds like a good argument, but if you look around, you see it hadn't gotten us into a good place. I believe that African men must once again write their lives in principles that must govern how they live, and thereby train an entire world to live by principles. But I'm ahead of my story. I'm proud of black men. I am honored to be their sister, their mother, their daughter. I'm honored to be in the family of African people. And I have come today to simply exhort African men to be who you are. One of the most interesting realities I find nowadays is that people have been trained to believe that you should be someone other than who you are. That you need to front and fake and try to push yourself forward as something you're not. I watch brothers do it all the time. They walk up to one another, they don't say, hey, how you doing? Even though they're glad to see each other. They go, because it's important to look hard. Why? Why? I'm considering that we need to redefine manhood, and that it is the men who must do it. I also take great pleasure in speaking for men because as a woman, I know the secret, and that is that the God who created all created women last. Yeah, he saved us for last. I won't say best, I'll just say most complicated. Women are the more complicated of the two creations. Just ask any man, he'll tell you. The brothers are honest, they tell you, yeah, women are complicated. But I know the secret, and that is that God created us as women into relationship. We were never without relationship. We were always in relationship. God gave woman to man and man to woman, but women came last. The protection of the seed required that women would never be out of relationship. But men had the courage, the strength to come first. Even God said it wasn't good, though. And the only time in the whole of creation where God says it's not good, his exact words were, it is not good for the man to be alone. It's his exact words. And yet man was alone and learned in that crucible how to have strength and purpose so that when the woman came to him, he would know what he must treasure. I know the secret of the union between men and women that God intended from that moment to this moment. And I'm honored. I'm honored to know that my brothers, my fathers, my sons still stand with me. May it be so even in eternity. Black men have an interesting press. What's out about you on the highway is not good. All you have to do is watch the news. And every 2 criminals out of 3 will be African American. They won't hesitate to tell you that a black man stole money from a convenience store. A black man went and shot 4 people. Black man. And they'll show you a black man. what's interesting, some friends of mine who do research on media discovered that even when it's a white person who did the crime, as soon as they finish that segment, the next face you'll see will be a black man. The reason for this is because there will become a psychological relationship between criminality and African manhood. Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to do that? I believe, after years of study, that there is a powerful, subtle, unstated, but no less real conspiracy against black men. It's a brother named Jawanza Kunjufu who wrote this in a text 30 years ago. And we said, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. But then, 30 years later, I look up, and 3/4 of the military, the expendable part, turns out to be men of color. 2/3 of the prison system, men of color. And yet African men are only 12% of the population. They're half of 12, because women are the other half. Altogether, we 12. So how can 6% of the people be committing 80% of the crime? You know, I have these conversations in the university where sometimes a sociologist try to tell me that there are reasons why African American males tend toward criminality. It's the social conditions, they say, and the poverty and so on. But of all of the things that I've heard that African American men have done, I know of not one of them who has stolen an entire savings and loan association. That wasn't black men that did that. Enron and all the problematics of Enron. I don't note that that was a black man that did that. And as much as our country seems to have open season on the president, Barack Obama, all upset, I hear from Cornel West, that we ought to be upset with him because we are still in Iraq. Let me remind Dr. West and all others that it was not Barack Obama who brought us to Iraq. Might be a challenge getting us out of what somebody else drove us into. And we still don't know why we were in Iraq. Somebody said weapons of mass destruction. But there are no weapons of mass destruction. So when we found that out, President Bush, why didn't you get out then? Things that make you go, You got to think about the world to understand it. I talk with young people every day, and they are convinced that I am old school, and so I am. Proud of it. Card-carrying member of the old school. Because I've seen the new school. Not as impressed as I could be. I'm not mad at them, I'm just not as impressed. See, old school makes a single argument about manhood. It is the title of this message. Man up. Man up. In the old school, men didn't have excuses. In the old school, men didn't even really offer explanations. They just went man up. They were having an amorous relationship with a young sister. It got beyond the boundaries of good decorum. She ended up pregnant. Old school men, man up. I will marry her. There wasn't no conversation. Wasn't no argument. Her daddy looked at this man and said, And the brother said, got it, no problem. In the old school, men loved their mothers, took care of their sisters, and raised their kids. I need you to know that there is an argument going on that black men don't raise their children anymore. That all these black children are in foster care, all these black children are in single family homes. But I still want you to know that while the statistics really are abominable, 45% of all black children in a home with only one parent, their mother. I need you to recognize, though, that what that means is that 55% are still home with both their parents. I need you to hear that. 55% of the black men of this country are raising their kids. Now, I wish it was 90, but I'll take 55 and give the brother props for the 55. If you listen to our country, you'll hear that the African American community is in all kinds of problems. I'm not going to name the problems for you this morning. I'm just going to talk the solution. Because I need you to know that the problems we confront, the problems of drug addiction, the problems of sexual addiction, the problems of joblessness, all these problems, brothers fighting against brothers, warfare everywhere we turn, all these problems are not new. They're aggravating, but they're not new. As I tell the young people all the time, you ain't new. You know, one of my godsons got a phone call from his girlfriend, except that he wasn't calling her his girlfriend, you know what I mean, because he was at the time 14, and his mama said, you can't have no girlfriend. So what do you call the girl who is your girlfriend when your mama said you can't have a girlfriend? She called on the phone. He picked up the phone and immediately knew that this was a conversation he did not wish for everyone to hear. So the brother, who is slick, he's smart young man, he took the phone, he said, excuse me, I just need to take a call, and went into the bathroom. 25 minutes later, he come out grinning. And I said, whom was that from? He said, oh, just a friend. And I had to say to him, son, you not new. I know what's up. I got the 4, the 1, and the 1. I know what's happening. Yeah, we used to do this when we was your age. The notion that we're new, we're not new. The problems you and I confront, yeah, they're found in 1 Kings. If you start reading 1 Kings in the 1st chapter, you'll find that all hell has broken loose. All hell. Jerusalem is in an uproar. And there are literally demonic forces at work. I wasn't using the term hell lightly. I meant it when I said there are demonic forces set loose in the major city of Israel. In the LA of that day, all hell had broken loose. It was so deep that even people who were supposed to be together because they were related by blood were at odds with one another. In the palace, the legendary David lay quietly in his bed. He was old now. Everybody gets old, you know. I tell the young people who now fuss with me, good grief, Dr. Piper Mandy, you're so old now, you don't even answer the phone after midnight. No, baby, I don't. No, I don't. Whatever joy you having can be had at 10 a.m. Used to be, though, you'd answer the phone all night long. Yeah, that's back when I was young and foolish. Now I don't answer the phone after 9:30. You see, as you get older, some things become more obvious to you and more quickly. It's one of the reasons to get older in a country that believes that everybody ought to be perpetually 19. There are reasons to get older. David lay in his bed, ruminating on his life. He was now the most legendary of Israel's 2 kings. He had fought war after war after war and won, to the point where for 40 years there was peace. He brought peace to a region of the world that may never have seen peace since. He was thinking about his life, the aged king. He was thinking about the fact that he hadn't always been king. He, in fact, hadn't always been royalty. He, in fact, hadn't always been loved. He was the 8th son of a man who, when the prophet said to him, "Bring me your sons," only brought the first 7. I mean, you got to know that's deep, right? You got to know it's deep when your daddy don't even count you in the number because you last. In an odd twist of fate, David is the one who is anointed, but then he has to spend the next 25 years fighting for what God gave him. That's for all of you who think that just because God gave it to you, it ought to be easy. Laying in his bed, a young woman beside him just to keep him warm. Just to keep him warm. He was so old now that he was happy for her just to keep him warm. He lay thinking about that too, because that hadn't been him either. Once upon a time back in the day, but he was ruminating on his life. See, he hadn't been perfect at all. He'd gotten into a political turmoil simply because he tried to do good. Those of us who tried to be good know good and well that it'll usually send folk after you to hurt you if you try to do good. He had only stood up to a giant and won. But the political forces around him conspired to turn his mentor into his enemy and spent a lot of his life just running. His best friend, the one who was so close to him that he understood him, the only person really that David ever had believed understood him, died. Died. How have the mighty fallen? He wrote a beautiful poem about it, but that had been years ago. He continued to reflect on his life, that every year he went to war like a good king should. But then one of those years he just got tired and couldn't tell why. Didn't go just because he got sick of it. Stayed home and had a midlife crisis. Except he didn't buy a red sports car. He went the other way. Hooked up, you know what I'm saying. Had figured out how to cover up the hookup, which is the #1 requirement of all hookups. I have to say that nowadays because young folk be hooking up, they don't even be trying to cover it up. I'm confused. The cover up didn't work. And he actually was running a fairly good scam on everybody because he like shanked the brother whose wife this was. He took him out, he capped him. Yeah, I gotta go there because I can't lose the young people, you see what I'm saying? They don't know from kill with a sword, but capped, they know about that. So he croaked the dude whose wife it was, and everything looked good for a while. Would have been fine if God hadn't showed up. Yeah, he'd have run a scam for Lord knows how long, but God showed up. Yeah, and sent a prophet and said, what would you do? Yeah, if a man who had everything took the only thing that another man had, what would you do? Now see, the problem here is that if David had been truly wicked, the story would have been different. But he wasn't truly wicked. David was actually a good guy in his heart. So when he heard about this rich man who had stole all the bank accounts of a poor man, he said, hey, what's up with that? I am still king up in here. No, we don't roll like that. That ain't how it go. No, he will pay 4 times what he took. And unfortunately, Nathan chose exactly that moment to turn around and say, not you. Yeah, that's how we say it old school. When you say something and we know that this is your crime, how you gonna be calling somebody else out? When you do this every day, we say, oh no, baby, not you. Anybody but you. Nathan said to David, oh no, son, not you. No, you are the one. And then a series of problems arose. Because just as David had prophesied on himself, now problems arise he can't handle. His love child with Bathsheba dies. And he's hoping that that's the end of it. But the problem is brewing in his house he cannot handle. Remember, the king is just thinking about his past. If you and I think about our past, we'll end up here too. His son Amnon, a brilliant and beautiful but perverted young man, falls in love with his sister, his half-sister Tamar. I mean, really hard. He is sprung. He is all out in the street in love with this girl. Now, in our world, we would have said, find another one, son. There's almost 7 billion people on the planet, half of whom are female. Find another one. But in that day, it would have been okay if Amnon had simply taken Tamar as his wife. He didn't do that, though. He raped her and then discarded her as if she was used tissues. And everybody turned to David. What's up with your family, dude? But David is not able to make a stand against Amnon. He's not able to say to his son, what have you done? Because he's afraid that his sons will turn on him and say, huh? Not you. So he lets it go. And the girl's full brother, Absalom, not only hates Amnon, I know he hated him because he killed him, but now he also hates his father, who would not take the stand of righteousness and justice in his own family. You got to be careful what you do in your family. You got to be careful, men, how you do justice in your family. Don't play favorites. And don't be afraid just because you was once wrong to correct an error you see growing in your family. Because I need you to understand that curses are generational. By that I mean whatever you did is now being passed on to your children. And if you want the curse to stop, you've got to stand up against it even if it indicts you. Another way of saying this, we got to get out of the practice as Adventists of presenting ourselves as if whatever goodness we got, we always had. That's how we do our children, you know it is. You need to just do like we do without telling them who we really were. Oh, come on now. Come on now, you ain't getting off like that. Come on now, be honest about who you really were. Some of y'all I knew, 30 years ago, Some of y'all knew me 30 years, Be careful. Me and Michael Morgan got the 411 on at least 12 of y'all. And yet when we talk to our children, we don't say, look, don't do this because I did it and it screwed me up. No, we try to make like, oh, we was holy, don't do it because it's wrong. The Bible says, like you was reading the Bible when it was you. No, what David should have done is say, Amnon, this is wrong, and I know it's wrong because I did a version of this. But he doesn't. Now Absalom, the brilliant, beautiful son of David, hates his daddy and creates a revolution, prepares to kill his own father if it hadn't been for grace in the name of the general Joab. David, who fled from his own kingdom, he ran from his own son. Oh, don't look like we don't understand that. I be looking at Maury Povich and everybody else on TV talking about, my daughter scared me. My son, my 14-year-old scares me. I got to lock my bedroom door at night. My son been gone for 3 days. He goes and comes back when he feels like it. I don't know what to do. Don't you see them reality shows? Of course, this is not a reality I understand. Rocky, where are you, son? Stand up, baby. Just stand up for me. That's my precious son in the back. If you look at his head next to the top of the windows, the boy is 6'7". Yeah, he don't scare me. He could grow to be 9'7". He still wouldn't scare me. I've been telling him since he was 2, I brought you here. I'm not worried about taking you out now. I'm not afraid of my giant son. He walks in the mall with Marcus. Marcus, are you here? There, Marcus. You see Marcus? Marcus 6'7". Rocky and Marcus walk together in the mall, and they don't be doing nothing. They just walking, laughing, talking. I watch people part. They don't never have to part each other because other people walk around them. Why is that? Because 2 6'7" black men, yeah, that's deep, in the mall. Yeah, there's folks who are scared of that. I ain't scared of it. I had a hand in raising Marcus. I'm not scared of him. But in a world where we have grown afraid of our children because we are afraid of the mistakes we have made, and we see them in our children, yeah, we end up in a pitiful place, a pitiable place. Anyway, Absalom has to actually be killed. So now that's 2, yeah? We got the first boy and Absalom dead. And the curse is not done. Because deep in the heart of the city, another son of David, Adonijah, has decided that his father is old enough. And so he steps forward, does the sacrifices which he is not supposed to do unless he's king. So he creates the sacrifices of the king, opens up a feast and declares that he is now king of Israel. And a whole bunch of people roll in his direction. Whole bunch of people. Suddenly, David doesn't know this. He's still ruminating about his past, about his successes and his failures, trying to stay warm next to this young girl who's been hired to keep him warm. And suddenly the door opens, and Bathsheba enters the chambers of the king. "My lord," she cries, and bows her head to the ground. "Didn't you promise me that Solomon, your son and mine, would sit on the throne of Israel?" And while she's talking to him, the prophet Nathan comes running in. "David, are you aware of the fact that your son Adonijah has taken over your throne?" See, I want you to know something, men in this congregation. Even when you old and you tired and you sick of having to regulate, you wish the people would just grow up and get it together. You are 80-11. Can you please just rest? I want you to know that there is always goodness that you can do, even if you must do it from your bed. Always goodness. David immediately, body tired, but the mind still sharp. He said, "Oh, bring Bathsheba, come back here, because this is what I need you to do. Go and get Solomon. Put him on my mule, because only the king rides my mule. Do I still have anybody on my side? Send him out with Solomon and proclaim him king. Not just king, but blessed. And Adonijah gets so frightened by the presence of his brother, the rightful heir, and he goes flying into the sanctuary. Grabs hold of the podium. Won't come out of there. Please tell me you ain't going to kill me, because I ain't going to come out till you do. I want to draw your attention in this story with so many parallels to our world. I don't have time to do them. I only want to draw attention to David's charge to Solomon. You heard it read in your hearing today. Solomon forgives Adonijah, at least this time. Later on, he actually has to kill him, but that's head of the story. Go back, read it yourself. This time, he forgives him, lets him live, and Solomon is declared king. Something important happens right here. You'll find it in the 2nd chapter. As David's time to die drew near, he charged his son Solomon. I'm about to go the way of the earth, he said. Be strong and courageous, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, so that you may prosper in all that you do and do good wherever you turn. That's an interesting charge to me. I want to bring up the 3 elements of the charge that fascinate me, and then, as the young people say, I'm out. Number 1, David blesses his son. Have you taken time, men of Normandy, to bless your son? To bless your child? To lay your hand on them and say, may the blessing of the Lord, which was mine, now be yours. Have you done that? See, just as curses pass through generations, so do blessings and inheritances pass through generations. But you have to pass them. It don't just happen. Look back at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You have to pass them. You have to do it while you're still alive. David passes the blessing to Solomon, and there are 3 elements of that blessing. Number 1, David gives Solomon the authority. The authority. You got to wrest authority in young people. Aaron, where are you? Stand up, Aaron. This is my godson, Aaron. Thank you, baby. Aaron is 15 years old and about to be a senior in high school. Yeah. We are very proud of him. As a result of the fact that he's 15 and all of that, you see what I'm saying? On Thursday, I guess it was, I said, Aaron, I want you to clean the kitchen. I didn't tell Aaron how to clean the kitchen. I just said, clean the kitchen. In other words, I passed to him the authority to make the decision about how it gets done. So here comes Anaya. Anaya, where are you? Stand up. Anaya is his sister, the 13-year-old about to be 8th grader at one of the toughest academies in Long Beach. These bright young people. Our young people are smart. You need to be telling your young people like I'm telling mine. When you get an opportunity, you point to your young people and say, stand up, baby, so people can see you. Don't be ashamed to call out your children's names, because by so doing, you pass them the authority. I said, Aaron and I clean the kitchen. I didn't say how, because I don't care how. I didn't say do the dishes first and wash the glasses first. I didn't say nothing. Sometimes their mom says, yeah, you people need to, and I grab her and pull her out the room. The reason I do that is because when you micromanage people, what you're saying to them is you don't really have the authority. I do. And I'm just getting you to do the work. I'm telling you, fathers of Normandy, that you must pass the authority. You have to give them the authority and then back up and let them carry it out in their way. Now, they ain't gonna do it the way you do it. Children be all trying to wash the floor before they do the dishes. That's not how I do it. Children be trying to sweep the floor, one sweeping and the other washing right behind. But you know what? I stay out of it. Because I don't care about how they do it. I care that it gets done. And when it's done, they call me and say, come on, come look at it. And guess what? Even they didn't do it my way, it's still all clean, looking great. And I didn't have to do a thing except pass the authority. You and I must pass the authority not only at home but here in church. I heard two young brothers and sisters standing up here during the service. Blew me away. Where's the one who tried to do the offering? Where are you? Stand up, son. What's your name? Omari tried to preach before I got up in here. Thank you, my son. You did an excellent job. Where's that wonderful comedian who did the scripture? Where are you? This brother needs to be in public because he understands audience. He knows how to work with people. He knows how to do it. It's all good, dude. Thank you. We have got to invest in men and in women. We must pass them the authority. Number two, David passes to Solomon the spiritual obligation. We have to pass spiritual obligations to our children. If we don't do that, if we don't teach them old school ways of being in the world, then they are not going to be able to be fully effective. They just won't because they don't know how to be. A lot of young people simply don't know how to be effective. I was in the mall with the youngest of my godchildren in this world. His name is Alex. Alex, stand up. Raise your hand because, you know, you might be challenged with height. There you are. Alex is 8. I walked into the door of the mall, and Alex ran in front of me to grab the door and open the door. I said, thank you, son. And then he saw that 4 women were behind me. He didn't know them. He just held the door open. Yeah, that's all. The last woman who went through the door said, he's so sweet. Isn't that wonderful? How come he did that for us? And I said, because he's raised to do that for you. Because the people in his life bothered to teach him old school rules. Now, if you open the door for a woman and she said, what, my hand ain't broke, I can open it myself, you back up and you say, and you let that crazy woman go through the door. Because I need to tell each and every sister that courtesy is not so easily found that you should be discouraging it anywhere. Man opens a door, that doesn't mean that you weak and you pitiful. Just means he's been well trained. Don't interfere. Go through the door. We teach spiritual obligation, that you have an obligation to women. You have an obligation to your family. You have an obligation to people. We got to sit next to our sons while they're watching these little music videos. You got to sit next to them. They're going to try to keep you from doing it. I suggest you try. Because there's some music videos out there you need to be explaining. One of them is called Tip Something or the Other. Bunch of young people put their head down. They know what I'm talking about. I ain't got to go no further. It is nothing but filth. But a man needs to sit next to young men and say, oh, no, for heaven's sake, no. A man has to do that. You got to be sitting there saying, that's not how we behave. That might be how men in the world do, but you are my son. And you have my authority in the world. And you got to stand up for your family name. And you don't let women walk in front of you, 15 women walk in front of you in a thong. No, you turn your head and you ask the sister to please put something else on so that you can maintain your respectability. Forget hers, yours. Men have to do that with men. Men have to raise men. Number 3, he passes on to his son the promise. The promise is that as long as you walk in my statutes and my ways, as long as you live the life I have instructed you to live, your children will forever sit on the throne. You see, if you want your dynasty to be your destiny, then you've got to raise that in your children. Men have got to turn to their sons and tell them that the Lord has promised that if you will continue to act like a man, then our family will forever be royal. Forever royal. It don't matter if you don't have a throne to sit on. David didn't have a throne to sit on either when he started. But 40 years down the line, he was the most legendary of Israel's kings. And you have to promise your sons and your daughters that if they will accept the authority and the spiritual inheritance, that they will gain the promise. David died, and Solomon became king. And up until David died, the most legendary king of Israel was David. But then Solomon sat on that throne. And to this day, the most legendary king of Israel is Solomon. Is Solomon. And the kingdom did not end. Even though many kings fell out of their way, God kept his promise. Because it was only 14 generations that the King of Kings came to rule in the line of David and Solomon. Remember this, men, that you are the son of a king. You are a man after God's own heart. And if you want your dynasty to be your destiny, you must raise sons after your own heart. A young boy went to school in the morning about 8. Dad dropped him off. Dad said, I'll pick you up tonight. He said, you promise, Dad? Dad said, I promise. So he said, okay, Dad, because Dad always kept his word. Went in and told the teacher, my dad's picking me up tonight. Around 10 o'clock in the morning, there was a horrible earthquake. All over the city, devastation and damage. But the trailer in which young Daniel, that's the boy's name, was in his 3rd grade class, literally fell through a sinkhole and got buried underground. Frightened children gathered all around a teacher who was scared to death herself. And she kept them as calm as she could, but her own fear grew as minute by minute they were trapped. Children started screaming and hollering, but she noticed that Daniel wasn't. She said, Daniel, are you okay? Come here, sit next to me. He said, no, I'm all right. And he kept looking up at the ceiling and all the dirt that had piled on the ceiling. It was cracking, but he kept looking up. She said, Daniel, are you worried about the ceiling collapsing? He said, no. Why are you looking at the ceiling, son? Because my dad's coming to get me. She said, Daniel, there's been a horrible earthquake. I don't know that anyone's dad can come get them. He said, oh, my dad will find me, and he's come to get me. See, my daddy told me that if ever I get lost, just stand still where I am and look for him. Because it's not my job to find my daddy. It's my daddy's job to find me. And he will find me. Hours went by. And the little air that was in the trailer, the oxygen began to drop. The teacher began to tremble. She watched the youngest and the weakest of the children literally become unconscious with the lack of air. She told the other children, just sit still, don't move a lot. And in the pitch blackness, with just a little light from a fire, a flashlight, she looked around the room and saw that half the children were unconscious. She was feeling very tired herself. But Daniel was still on his feet, looking at the ceiling. She said, Daniel, come sit down, son, so you won't lose oxygen. And at that moment, the boy actually dropped to his knees. He was becoming so weak, but he would not sit down. My dad told me that if ever I get lost, to go to the highest place I can find and keep my hand up in the air, and he would see me and he'll find me. And so this little boy propped his hand up on his elbow so his hand would stay in the air so his dad could find him. 19 hours into being buried alive, all the children were unconscious, including Daniel. He fell asleep, though, with his arm propped up beside him, passed out on the floor, unconscious and dying. The teacher, who was the only one still conscious, began to pray, my Father, take all of our spirits into your hands. And as she said it, she closed her eyes, prepared to die. When suddenly a crack in the ceiling deepened. Earth started falling through. She was afraid that there was actually going to be, had never been an aftershock, and she was going to get buried alive. If she hadn't been so weak, she would have screamed. But the crack opened, and the dirt stopped falling. And suddenly she could hear voices, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? And a whoosh of oxygen entered into this little trailer trap of death. And as the oxygen filled the room, some of the children started coming to. And as soon as Daniel opened his eyes, he looked up and cried, Dad, is it you? And the teacher was afraid. It's the fireman, thank goodness. But a voice cried out of that hole, son! Dad, Daniel cried, Dad! Daniel, stand back, I'm coming for you. And the first person to swing through on a rope was not the fireman, was not FEMA, but Daniel's dad. Daniel grabbed hold of his father, and his father said, son, they tried to tell me to stop digging, but I wouldn't stop digging. They tried to tell me move out the way because I was going to get cave-in. I don't care about cave-in. When I tell you I'm coming for you, you bet your life I'm coming for you. And Daniel looked up and said, Dad, I was never worried. I knew you'd come. Don't you understand, Normandie? We're in an earthquake. A horrible thing has happened, and we're buried in a world of sin. We're underground, and we're about to die, and even the bravest of us are losing oxygen and losing air. But I need to tell you that it's my prayer, my privilege, and my intention to stay on my feet as long as I can. And when I can't stay on my feet, I'll drop to my knees. And when I can't stay on my knees, I'll lay on my back, and I'll prop up my hand because my Father promised me he'd come get me. And I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. I don't care how bad it is. My dad's coming. My dad's coming, and he'll get here right on time. That is the legacy of fathers. May God bless you, fathers. Amen.